What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to our CryptoTalk. I'm your host, Tanish, and today we've got a special one for you. We're sitting down with Mike Horton, the founder of GEODNET. Now, before you tune out thinking, oh, another DePIN project, just hold on. This guy was building sensors the size of rice grains for the military before most of us even knew what GPS stood for. MIT named him a top innovator under 35 back in 2003. He co-founded a company that sold a major aerospace firm for close to about a $50 million, if I'm not wrong. And he's got around 20 plus patents. And last year, he literally testified before the US Congress about why decentralized infrastructure matters for America. So this isn't just your average crypto founder. This is a deep tech veteran who decided blockchain was the missing piece to fix how the entire world does positioning. So Mike, welcome to our CryptoTalk, man. Glad to have you.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here. And what a great introduction.
So Mike, let's just straight jump onto this, and I really want to start somewhere where everyone talks about crossbow technology, the $50 million exit, NLO photonics, and all the resume stuff. But I read that you literally started crossbow right out of your masters at Berkeley with your own professor as your co-founder. You were what, 22, 23 back then, building
Yeah, young. I don't remember. I couldn't rent a car. That's what I remember. When I'd go to visit customers, I could never rent a car. I always had to have our sales guy rent a car because there's some, I can't remember what age you have to be in the US to rent a car, but I was too young. So it was a fun time. Early days of MEMS technology, basically sensors that are built in semiconductor processes. So it's fun stuff.
Absolutely. Like, as you're saying, you couldn't rent a car, and you're building sensor tech that ended up in military drones with over what, so many flight hours in Iraq, Afghanistan. Before that, you were experimenting with some of the world's first acceleration sensors. So my question is, when you were a 22-year-old kid in a Berkeley lab, did you have any idea that the tech you were tinkering with at that time would end up guiding military aircraft in, active combat zones? And at what point in that whole journey did you look at blockchain and go, I would like to jump on.
Yeah. Well, I can connect the dots there really quickly. So, I've been a sensor guy my whole life, sensor fusion, robotics, autonomy. And the thing in the early days, the sensors were just not super great. And it was a big challenge to do things. We wanted to do virtual reality. So I wanted to build a IMU for virtual reality headsets, head tracking, things like the Wii. But this was a good 20 years before any of that type of stuff that you see now with gaming and virtual reality was practical. The displays weren't there, the compute wasn't there. And so what we learned is that being able to build a good sensor in a semiconductor process is something that's very scalable. We were able to go in and actually replace older mechanical gyros, and that's how we got into drones and so forth. This is all crossbow stuff. And once we started, being able to build solid state sensors, we're like, well, we also want to get, besides sort of orientation and speed, we want to get position, and started to use GPS as a sensor. And GPS as a sensor is kind of okay for getting from A to B to a grocery store, but it is really not great for robotics and autonomy because the precision just isn't there. The precision of GPS is a couple meters in XY and even like 5-ish meters in height. So those are big distances. 5 meters is 15 feet. It's a not helpful for a drone to have that kind of accuracy. So a way to improve GPS by 2 orders of magnitude is to get a correction signal to it that can correct for ionosphere errors, orbit errors, clock errors. That's really what's called RTK. And that's where GEODNET came in and blockchain came in. I mean, everyone would love to do RTK, but you have to have infrastructure to do it, or you have to set up your own base station. Neither of those are easy or scalable to mass market levels. And so we had tried kind of a Web 2 method to set up base stations and realized that this would take decades to do. And it has been taking decades. People have been working on the problem since I was in college, building this infrastructure. And with blockchain and tokenization and, using blockchain as an incentive layer, we've been able to build with GEODNET the biggest GPS corrections network ever. and be able to really establish the use case of that for consumer applications such as drones, robotic lawnmowers, and automotive. And, I spend all my time day to day working on the Web 2 side, but it's only because of Web 3 infrastructure that we've been, afforded the opportunity to build such a great and high utility service. So that's the journey. And back to the sensors piece, sensors have been the limiting factor really for autonomy and robotics. And that now all the sensor technology, including GeoDNet, as it really is a sensor network fundamentally, a position sensing network. But in addition, the camera processing technology, the computer vision and the LiDAR and the IMUs, these things have all come together now at a level of affordability and accuracy and capability to enable mass market robots. And that is really, I think, the compute combined with the sensors is the underlying breakthrough that's allowing now robotics to go mass market and to do all the things that we just dreamed of 20 years ago. You didn't think would ever really be possible, but you could have the dream. Now those dreams are practical and they're right here on us. They're coming faster than we as a society, I think, really know how to handle them.
That makes sense. The realization, about the infrastructure to deliver that precision to everyone was kind of the bottleneck, and basically where blockchain came in. And, which actually leads me to something I've been wanting to understand a bit better. So I was going through this analogy that you gave in a recent interview about the grocery store, and that I thought was brilliant. You said something like, maybe imagine if you could memorize where everything is in a grocery store to a centimeter accuracy, and you'd be probably hyper intelligent. You navigate the physical world with way more precision than any human could. And that's essentially what RTK does for autonomous systems, right? So can you break that down for our audience? Because I think most people hear centimeter level GPS accuracy and their eyes just glaze out. But when you frame it as giving robots and drones a kind of spatial super intelligence, that's a different conversation entirely. So what does going from a meter level to a centimeter level accuracy, like you also just dived into it for a while, what does it actually unlock that wasn't possible before?
Yeah. So, let's back up a second and just talk about memory and the role that memory kind of plays in artificial intelligence. And then we'll bring it back to physical AI and spatial intelligence. But if you think about what makes an LLM so useful, right? You can ask it any question. It has this ability to reason about things, but that reasoning is built on this massive memory, a memory that you could never possibly have. It's read every book, it's scraped every internet site, it knows everything that's kind of printed, and all this now, ability to analyze videos and audio that's inherent in this sort of AI brain. And that's what gives you this feeling of super intelligence. Like you can just ask it anything and it gives you such a good reasoned response on things because it has this enormous memory. Well, when it comes to the physical world, you need to know where things are in order to be intelligent. The grocery store example, your home, you forget things, you kind of feel dumb, you're lost in a city, you feel actually kind of confused, and it's a feeling of loss of intelligence. Well, to give machines and to give the internet and to give these systems that spatial intelligence, you need to be able to position things that you see. And so you have great sensors like cameras and lidars that can scan and analyze the world, but that what they see needs to be placed in an absolute coordinate frame so it can be recalled, right? This is the same analogy. I can recall text from a book. Well, if I want to recall physical things, that recollection means being able to place it at a fixed XYZ grid. And that's the capability that GeoDNet provides, is this hyper precise location capability. You couple it with cameras and lidars, and now you can understand and reason about the entire world, just like an LLM can reason about all the books and internet sites that it's read.
See, that's what I kind of love about this project. We cover a lot of DePIN projects on the show, and most of the time, the real world utility pitch feels a bit forced. And but with GeoDNet, I think you're talking about a technology that farmers, drone operators, autonomous vehicle companies literally cannot function without. Like you mentioned, there's a huge gap because there's a difference between a tractor knowing which road it's on versus knowing exactly which plant to avoid, right? So I feel the product sells itself. The question is just how you deliver it, and the delivery mechanism is where it gets really interesting. And all right, I think I have to ask about this because I think it's one of the most underrated moments in all of DePIN. If the research team and my research is correct, in April 2025, you testified before the US House Committee on Agriculture, right?
Indeed, and that committee is also very involved in the clarity. They're basically the House Ag Committee, working with the CFTC, and I think it's the Financial Services Committee working with the SEC, or the two parties coming together to hopefully bring sane, rational crypto regulation to the United States.
Yeah, and also a month later, I guess, during the hearings of the FID 21 Act, the lawmakers cited GeoDNet as a model for how blockchain can deliver real public benefits. So, Mike, I'd like to ask, just walk us through that experience. What was it like being in that room? Did you feel like the people in that room actually understood what DePIN is, or were you just translating the whole time? And, what did you tell them that made them sit up and take notes?
Yeah, I think that the DePIN was new to them. I think it was basically an introduction of DePIN to the committee. The committee understood very well blockchain and tokens and the idea of transacting value across a blockchain, but had primarily, I think, looked at things like stable coins and tokenization of physical of assets and things, and hadn't really understood the ability of blockchain to produce a utility network that, while we understand what electricity is, this is kind of like or we understand what GPS is. This is a very much a utility network for robots and machines, and how that blockchain can accelerate that creation, management, value delivery of a utility network was new to them. And so it was a great pleasure to get to introduce that kind of concept there. Obviously, because it's the House Ag Committee, then there are a number of guys, who come from farming families on the committee. They could really understand how we're accelerating the adoption of precision farming, fully robotic farming, better disease and pest management, better use of water resources, all those things that are the kind of constituents that lead to a profitable farm and to lead to having food on your plate. So it was really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it land, that you're not just selling a vision, but you're actually showing the farmers how to save real money right now. And now let's just talk about the actual economics of this network, because the numbers have been kind of insane lately. So here's what blew my mind when I was actually researching for the episode. So GeoDNet's annualized recurring revenue went from what, $2 million at the start of 2025 to over what, 7 million by the end of the year, and uh, revenue was growing quarter over quarter, right? And I think you got 50 plus enterprise clients, if I'm not wrong, including the names of Drone Deploy and Septentrio, I guess. And I think in the DePIN space, where most projects are still trying to prove the PMF, you're already generating real revenue. And I think that's just insane. And I'd like to ask, what's actually driving that growth? And is it just one sector pulling the weight, or is it distributed across agricultures, drones, constructions, and even more?
Yeah. So first of all, we have, I'd say, 10 major customers and about 150 total B2B customers. So the GeoDNet model is B2B to C. So you don't go on the GeoDNet website and purchase end user subscriptions to RTK corrections. You do that through our partners, and we have wholesale partners and reseller partners. And it's much more now than 50. So we've been adding 1 to 2 a week for a couple of years now. It's grown tremendously, and that's across quite a few different applications. So precision geospatial services, underpin a lot of different things. The ones that we get the most excited about are the new things, which is drones and robotics, but there are also classical applications like construction, civil survey, precision agriculture, geodeformation, so monitoring civil infrastructure for motion. We provide data to companies that make chips, even the GPS chips that go in your phone and things like that. So it's actually the utility of being able to correct for these standard errors in GPS, and then really and the satellite signals themselves is pretty foundational across a lot of different applications. We're also helping with new spacecraft, low Earth orbit satellites. So it's fairly horizontal. Geospatial touches a lot of different applications. Although we do think the most important, exciting growth is in this new class of machines that are coming into our lives, known as robotics. and that is, as many have predicted, I think completely. This isn't like a hype. This isn't a narrative. This is really happening. It's driven, as I said earlier, because the sensor technology, of which GeoDNet is a very foundational, position sensing is a very important part of it, is really the big unlock.
That makes sense. And talking about all that, and when you look at the tokenomics combined, you realize that the revenue flows back into the ecosystem, and it starts to paint a very different picture than your typical, other tokens or other DePIN projects, if I say. So let's just talk about, what makes GeoDNet's tokenomics genuinely unique. Because what I know is that 80% of all the network revenue goes directly to buying and burning the Geo tokens. And, uh, you know, the burns are now offsetting roughly what? 80%, 85% of new token issuance, right? So you've publicly even said that GeoDNet could flip into net positive tokenomics. But, if that happens, GeoDNet would be in an incredible rare category of protocols, right? Like, just not considering the current market conditions, but apart from that, how realistic is that timeline? And, what does the revenue trajectory need to look like to get there?
Yeah, so let's take that in two pieces. First, sort of the tokenomics, and then the burn mint equilibrium. So the tokenomics are very simple, and they're based on that sort of thought process that GeoDNet is not. It's a decentralized protocol. It is not trying to build, a gigantic corporate organization. It's trying to effectively use a protocol and software distributed across the internet to connect people who need high accuracy GPS data, people and machines that need that data, with people who can provide that data. That is, the people who are willing to invest the time and energy and money to set up a station that can provide that data. So the foundation's role, and it's not, we're not a two-tier thing with a labs company and a foundation separately. No, it's just a decentralized protocol. There's just a foundation to kind of shepherd it along and build the name and make sure that, things happen and take place effectively in it. But its role is pretty minor. The major constituents in the ecosystem are the data providers, the people setting up GeoDNet stations, and the ecosystem of people using the data. And that includes the ecosystem of the Web 2 companies that are actually ingesting the data and selling it on to people. So these resellers and wholesalers I mentioned easier. So in that light, it made sense to me that the protocol should not be taking a big cut of the fees that are generated by the network. So buyback and burn of 80% made a lot of sense to me. When I started, I didn't realize how rare that thinking was. I think a lot of people have different views. I've posted on this on X about it. It's actually my pinned tweet right now is about buyback and burn, and how burn is really the retirement of tokens. Is if you want to look at it as an equivalent thing in Web 2, it's like retiring stock, and it's very powerful. Take a look at Apple. Over the last decade or so, Apple has retired like 50% of their shares. So it's a very powerful way to add, more and more value back to the network, because every time a token is burned, then the revenue per total, fully diluted token goes up, even if the revenue doesn't go up, or the earnings per token essentially do. So I think it's a simple, very easy to understand tokenomic model that is working well. And I'm honestly sometimes surprised that it's controversial or that people have a different view, because in the end, a decentralized protocol, it's not meant to be a company. It's meant to be a protocol. And that's really what the GeoDNet network is. Now, on the burn mint equilibrium and when that's going to happen, well, I don't completely know, because it depends on two factors, both of which are a bit out of my personal control. One is how quickly revenue grows, and the other is where the token price is. And when those two align, you'll have a deflationary token. But I consider the token kind of constantly deflationary all the time anyway, because we had a total initial mint of 1 billion tokens and we're actively burning tokens. So the number of tokens is always actually going down. Where I think that my view differs a little bit from the broader market on that is people tend to focus a lot on, well, what's the liquid market cap or the circulating supply versus the total cap. And that's just a function of time, right? Eventually all the tokens will be liquid. I think the market focuses a lot on the liquid side because people like to front run each other in crypto. We're in this for the long term. So from our perspective, we're always deflationary. but where we will be kind of deflationary in an instantaneous sense, relative to emissions to miners versus burns from the network, just really depend on how quickly revenue grow and on where the token price is. And when those two kind of allow for enough burning to occur, then you're net positive. And that could be in the current market conditions, that could be, I think, quite quickly. We don't completely control how quickly revenue grows. It's really driven by how fast these customers or ours adopt, and how all kinds of things that are a bit out of our control. But in general, it seems like everybody enjoys using the network, and I'm not getting a lot of complaints. I'm getting a lot more requests for more subscriptions, more enterprise customers signing up. Places, we're adding stations where there are little coverage gaps, and I think overall it's going very, very well.
I mean, that's a really compelling setup. A hard cap supply, you mentioned, the real revenue driving, the deflationary pressure. And the sad part is, you don't hear that frequently in the whole ecosystem, even DePIN and crypto.
Yeah, crypto's crazy. There's a lot of noise, a lot of smoke and mirrors. I came in to this marketplace, not very skeptical, really, reading a lot of Vitalik stuff, a lot of Totally stuff, the two, Ethereum and Solana founders, and being so excited about it. And I do believe in the vision, but there is an insane amount of noise and nonsense in it. And there are a variety of factors that I think cause that to dominate, and it's very unfortunate. So we all have to be patient, I think, and let a lot of this stuff shake out. And some of the shaking can be very violent. It's like an earthquake, right? Some of these things, 1010, whatever, FTX, these things are like earthquakes that hit. And they're all just because there's a lot of this sort of chasing fool's gold, pump and dump, front running, the stuff that's just not long term. None of that. It's all of zero interest to me. It's just fucking noise.
That's true. Even, Zach XBT would be dropping a report tomorrow, and that will even be worse for the markets, because he's going to drop a report about some insider trading of a very profitable crypto company tomorrow. So let's see what that is. So
yeah,
moving on from the negativity, I just want to ask you more about, a recent move that you guys made, fully migrating to Solana as the primary chain, and then about you guys launched the, geo exploration game on Solana Seeker phone. So tell me more about that, Mike. Is it a Pokemon Go play for DePIN, or what? I would like you to,
Yeah, let's first talk about Solana, and then let's talk about Token Run. So first, Solana, I think it is the chain that has a lot of momentum. It's good at a lot of transactions, and we would like to ultimately even bring more things on chain. It has a lot of momentum in DePIN. So that's really the reason we migrated there. And, our home chain, the original chain, I shouldn't say home, our OG chain, Polygon is cool too. It just didn't have that kind of intersection with DePIN. And we like to be part of a community. I think it's good. We try to help other projects. We're big supporters of the Rover network, which is doing incredible things in camera and LiDAR, spatial data collection and processing, and so forth. So that was the reason for the migration. Token Run is a very interesting case. So we're trying to address a number of things. One is on the Android phone, unfortunately not yet on the Apple phone, but on the Android ecosystem, they actually have an API where you can see the raw satellite observable. So basically the raw satellite signals called the carrier phase, Doppler, code measurements. And so when you have that and you connect that to a high accuracy geospatial network like GeoDNet, you can do two very interesting things. One, you can prove location in a way that is incredibly difficult to fake, damn near impossible. And then the second is you can improve the accuracy. So we wanted to, prove that out. We worked with the Solana Foundation early on, made sure it had a chip inside the phone, because all the phones in Android, they're very different. Some have better GNSS chips than others. We made sure it had a chip that would be able to provide all the data we wanted. And yay, verily it does. And we're actually able to get centimeter accuracy out of the Solana phone. So we wanted to show off that capability. And we also wanted to show off this proof of location capability. So we thought through different ways that we could do that and maybe address some of the challenges that we hear back from things like CEXSO. GeoDNet doesn't have enough wallet holders, not enough token activity, and thought, well, a Pokemon Go style game would be really fun. And we put it together, named it Token Run, and it's been a hit. It's been really, I think, quite a successful effort. It's been at the top of the Solana store. Active users has been growing. I don't have all the numbers off the top of my head, but I think we're approaching 50,000 users that have used it, and 8,000 daily. I think 8,000 daily users, something like this. Don't quote me on these numbers, but it's doing, I think, very well. I scanned through some of the statistics for other Web3 games, and I think we're right up there in the top 10 on our first try. So I think there is a desire to get games that are fun and that have an element of exploring the world, as Pokemon Go has shown, and Token Run's off to a great start. More broadly than that, as we build on top of Token Run and get more involved in the mobile ecosystem, we do plan to try to leverage the proof of location service across other DeFi apps, across other geospatial Web3 apps where you need that proof of location, or you need high accuracy location, but you don't want dedicated hardware. So that's the whole Token Run story, and it is something that we're going to continue to push aggressively.
That's great. That was great hearing from you, Mike. And before I let you go, I have a few rapid fire questions prepared for you. I didn't want to make it too boring and too,
Let's go.
just short answers only, no essays, okay? So let's go. Biggest misconception people have about GPS.
Biggest misconception that people have about GPS. That is GPS. It's actually multiple constellations. So GPS refers to US satellites. It's the brand name of the US constellation. But there's a European constellation called Galileo, a Russian constellation called GLONASS, and a Chinese constellation called Beidou, and we use all of them as civilians.
Okay. So next up, you were named one of the top 50 sensor technology experts in the world. What's the coolest sensor application most people have never heard of?
Coolest sensor application most people have never heard of.
Maybe something from the smart dust days.
Yeah. Well, I think that, embedded sensors in concrete. So people have been putting in fiber optic sensing into concrete now for a while on large civilian structures. So when you look at that bridge, you think it's just a beam, it's just a static structure, but actually living inside of it is sensors that are monitoring the health and the stress and the strain in there. And I always find that just incredibly cool, that these structures, especially modernized structures, like you can see these mega bridges, those things are alive. They're inside the beams. Is actually electronic sensing that's taking place.
Okay, that was a bit long, but still, we move ahead. So, Mike, you went viral at the India Blockchain Week for saying you landed in Bengaluru when you were nowhere near it. So, what actually happened there?
Well, I landed at the airport, which, I was very happy to arrive Bangalore. It was my first trip to India. I genuinely was super excited. I posted this picture, and I got a corresponding amount of love and trolling that, hey, Bangalore Airport is not in Bangalore, and I learned that the hard way. It is not. It's quite a distance out.
All right. So next up, if GeoDNet did not exist and you had to start a completely different DePIN project tomorrow, what infrastructure would you decentralize?
Well, I think that there's a lot of interesting things with space still to come. And so I have, I think there's some ideas to, help decentralize infrastructure for ground stations and satellites that is super interesting.
All right. So the last one prediction for DePIN in 2026 that most people aren't ready for.
I think it's going to make a comeback. I don't know if it'll still be called DePIN, but I think between robotics and some of the things that are going on with like helium and things, I do think people are going to come back around to it, as it is a very high utility use case for blockchain.
All right, Mike, this has been one of my favorite episodes to record personally. I think what stands out to me most is that you're not someone who stumbled into crypto looking for a narrative. You spent 3 decades building the actual technology, identified a real infrastructure problem that, the traditional approaches couldn't solve, and you use blockchain as a tool to fix it. And that's the DePIN thesis at its purest, I feel, after helium. initial days of Helium. And for everyone watching, if you want to check out GeoDNet, the website would be in the description below. And Mike, I think you also have your own podcast, right?
I do. I haven't published an episode recently, so it's great to get on here with you. But yes, I try to publish when I get a chance. And folks, if you check out our YouTube channel, I think that's the single best place to get a good feel for what we're doing, what our customers doing. We do publish a lot of video content on our YouTube channel, including my podcasts.
Yeah, and also, Mike, final words to the RTK community, and where can people find you guys, follow the project, and get involved with you?
Yeah, our YouTube channel, X, of course, check out geodnet.com, but I really recommend our YouTube channel and our X.
Appreciate you, Mike. That's a wrap on this one, everybody. If you got value from this, smash that like button, subscribe to OurCryptoTalk, and drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Amazing. Cheers, everyone.